Hi everybody, we've had 2 days of the St Ledger meeting already, and now there's another 2 days to go, including, of course, the big race, which is the St Ledger. It's a cracking card on Saturday. It's a very good card on Friday as well, and we're going to start off with Friday, and I'm delighted to be joined by Chad Yeomans of Betway and the Sun's chief Templegate tipster, Templegate, Steve Mullin, as he is also known, joining me, Tom Bull, to preview the races on the final 2 days of the St Ledger meeting at, of course, sunny Doncaster. So let's start with the 3:15 on Friday, which is the Bet365 Doncaster Cup Group 2, arguably the weakest Doncaster Cup I think I've ever seen. I don't know how you guys would agree with that or not, but it looks a pretty low-grade affair with, I mean, you've got a 98 rated horse, who's second favourite in Revolver. So, but Spanish Mission heads the market, William Buick and Andrew Balding. Then we've got Revolver. Then Eagles by Day for David O'Mara and Danny Tudhope. And then a few others as well, including Celino, who runs in the Qatar Racing colours. And then a couple of outsiders. Steve, comes to you for this one first. Do you think it's going to be Spanish Mission as the market, or do you think Revolver could maybe get to him? Or do you think something else is going to win?
I agree with what you're saying about it not being a great race, is it? I mean, for Group 2. I mean, when you think Stradivarius is on the Roll of Honour, nothing like that here. I mean, without massive enthusiasm, I think Spanish Mission looks the one to beat, judged on that listed win at Chester last time. I mean, he won it so easily. I know it's going over a fair bit longer trip here, which is a slight doubt. But it was such a good win. And like you say, the quality of the opposition isn't great. I mean, Eagles by Day probably won't stay, you wouldn't think. And when I'm going through it and you're thinking the Grand Vizier is a realistic hope, then you realise it's not the greatest of races, really. Revolver, yeah, he's been hoovering up the small prizes, hasn't he? For Mark Prescott, Sir Mark Prescott, and obviously stays forever. But I mean, the winning margins, well, they're supposed to have been fair enough, but it hasn't had an awful lot to beat so far. Should find things a bit tougher here, I would have thought. So I'll go with Spanish Mission. I think the market's got it right. Okay,
lovely. What about you, Chad?
I think the market's got it right. I think Spanish Mission deserves to be favourite. He was very talented when with David Simcock, now obviously with Andrew Balding. He was good last time out of Chester, and I pretty much agree with everything you've said. When you make the Grand Vizier, there's a case for him, and you know he's going to stay, you suddenly go, actually, there's probably not going to be a great deal of pace on. And the question mark I had around Eagles by Day staying, actually, kind of, I answered it myself. I think they've all got a question mark around the distance. They're not going to go hell for leather, and they're going to go at a fairly even clip, which will give everyone a chance of getting it. And I think it'll be down to the best horse in the race. And at the prices, Eagles by Day just takes my fancy. I mean, the win at York was good. Admittedly, the form hasn't worked out massively, but the win at York was good. I think he's just below the level of Stradivarius now for the top stayers. And I think that's why he was beaten by Stradivarius next time out. And he was beaten by En Bihard time after that. But he was only beaten a matter of lengths, a handful of lengths, 4 or 5 lengths one time and 5 or 6 lengths the other time. And I just think this is a little bit more realistic. I think Revolver's got so much to do. I really do. I think he's been winning Mickey Mouse races. But fair play to Connections for giving him a crack at this and getting him into the position where he can be 7-2 for it. But I just think Eagles by Day is 5-1. It's an each way bet, really. And at the prices, he'd be the one I'll go for.
Lovely stuff. Thanks, mate. I'm going to go with Revolver, actually, despite what we've been saying about him having a lot to find. Just because he gets that huge amount of weight, I mean, he's getting nearly a stone from his rivals. And off that 98 rating, that puts him up there with the favourites there, with the highest rated horse in the race. And the way that he's going and the weakness of this race suggests to me that he might well be a big player. Hopefully, he can continue to improve for Mr. Morris and Sir Mark Prescott. Right, that's the 3:15 done and dusted. On to the 2:40, which is the Bombardier Flying Childers Stakes. Probably my favourite named race throughout the flat season. I love it. We've got Sacred. Philly heads the market for Tom Marquand and William Haggis. She couldn't quite get to grips with Lady Amulet last time out at York, but that was still a really good performance. Then the Learjet, Steel Bull, Frenetic goes for Joe Lyons and William Buick and a few others too. Chad, we'll come to you first this time, mate. It's a good race, this one, very competitive. Who takes your eye?
Well, first of all, can I get a list outside after this video of the top 5 Tom Bull's favourite race names of the year?
Yeah, might be my pleasure. Maybe that's my next top 5 video.
I think that's your next top 5 video. Yeah. I'd like to know others. In the race, I think it's a really competitive race. Interesting. Steel Bull comes over. Obviously had a real valid excuse in the Phoenix last time. Knocked 2 teeth out, which can't be good for anyone at all or anything. It still ran well. despite that. And I just think Natural Ability dropping back down to 5 furlongs and what we saw at Goodwood, but the prices are currently 11-2. I think that's a massive each way price, I really do. I think Frenetic is quick, but she's got one burst of pace, and I just don't quite know whether she's going to be able to lead this field all the way and kick clear, or whether she's going to have the opportunity to show that burst of speed. If you like the Learjet, you've got to back Ventura Tormenta, because one's 4-1, one's 12-1, and Ventura Tormenta's beaten it in France. And I just think on the prices, and Sacred dropping back to 5 furlongs, I think is probably a plus, because she travelled so well at York and looked like the winner, but just didn't have the experience to get past Miss Amulet. Just didn't have that kind of the guts. But I think she'll go close. But the price is still, Bull represents great value, if you ask me.
Steel Bull, indeed, those 2 teeth and being knocked out last time out must have been a hideous affair, but he still did quite well to finish ahead of other horses. I mean, he wasn't last, was he? Steve, what do you think about this? The Irish got it for you, or is an English rider you like?
No, I'm very keen on Sacred. No, it's not a huge price. But I thought that was a really good run in the Lowther at York. Just think maybe, like Chad was saying, lack of experience and possibly the extra furlong might have just been a little bit too much. The speed figure she clocked when second at Royal Ascot was by far the best one on show here by quite some distance, really. Drops back to 5 furlongs. The ground should be similar. Hopefully she can repeat that, and if she does, I think she'll be much too good. The only one on the clock that's come close is Frenetic, and that wasn't last time. That was when winning at the Curragh listed race earlier in the season over this trip. So again, Frenetic I'd give a good chance to as well, and everything you said about Steel Bull's valid. I mean, nearly knocked himself out last time, so it was amazing that he got out at all. But I'm really quite keen on Sacred and think she'll take a lot of beating.
Yeah, she's done nothing wrong, has she? I'm going to go with You Better Believe It at a big price. I think he is well overpriced. On that Sandown win the time before last, he was quite impressive, and equally as impressive at Doncaster on his second start. He showed so much pace that day, and I do think at 12-1, he shouldn't be that big a price. It should be around the 4 to 5-1 mark. So I'm going to go with You Better Believe It, who actually gets Rowan Scott in the saddle. Obviously, Asheen Murphy's missing this week, so it'll be interesting to see what she can do. It's really good that she's got such a big ride. She's a very talented young jockey, and I think You Better Believe It for Nigel Tinkler. That'd be a great win for him. That's Friday done. We're going to go on to Saturday now. There's a few more races to look at there from Donny. Obviously, the St. Leger is the highlight of the race, but we've also got the Portland Handicap, which is a Class 2, always really competitive, that one. But we'll start with the Champagne Stakes, which is the Group 2. It's been won by some very good horses over the years. And heading the market here is Al Bashir for Owen Burrows, another good horse in the Hamlet Al Maktoum colours. Looks like being Jim Crowley taking the ride there. Then we've got Chindit, who's had 2 starts, 2 wins. Mujbar for Charlie Hills, also in the Hand Down Silks, and St. Lawrence, as well as a few others as well. Steve, coming to you here. I think you might have tipped up, or at least fancy Broxy in the past, who runs in this race, but he's probably going to have a little bit too much to do here. Who takes your eye on this?
Yeah, Broxy ran well at York last time, but I don't think, well, maybe, but got fair gap to bridge. But I mean, I was drooling about Chindit last time. I mean, the way that horse absolutely, well, chin them. I mean, it was fantastic, wasn't it? I mean, yeah, it travelled beautifully, had to sit and suffer, and then whoosh away, cheerio. That looks like a really good win to me. Cove, that was second, decent yardstick. When you look back, Al Bashir was very impressive as well, but was it not as visually impressive and not quite as impressive on the clock, albeit didn't have the same kind of rivals to beat. I was very impressed by Chindit, and I think there's an awful lot more to come. We know the trip suits one has made an at Doncaster as well, so no issues with the track. And I think there's an awful lot more to come from Richard Hannon's youngster.
Great stuff. Chad, would you be in the same boat?
The form of the Ascot race couldn't have worked out any better, could it? With the second Cove winning at Salisbury next time, beating Fancy Man, who then won at the last weekend. St. Lawrence then going on to win a race. The third also winning a race. There's not a great deal between the front, the couple of them, especially on Chindit's debut run where it beat Al Basic and Al Bashir beat it 6.5 lengths. There's not a great deal between the two, other than Chindit's had an extra run. So I'd rather back Chindit of the two. But the one I'm going to take a bit of a punt on is Mujbar for Charlie Hills. Now, this horse was really well backed on debut at Newbury. And Charlie Hills is two-year-olds and debutants who are well backed, usually are above average. Going off favourite. I think things just didn't go right that day, but that race actually worked out really well. Raw Scimitar won the race and ran 4th in the Acomb Stakes. The 3rd, the 4th and the 5th have all been out since and won. Al Mukatek, I think it's called, of Marcus Dragonings, and the 5th Bubarzi won next time out at Chepstow. And then this Mudge Bar came out and won a maiden at Newmarket by 7 lengths. And I just think he's probably above average. And if he didn't finish 8th on his debut, and he didn't find it all a bit too much, he could have a very decent record, and he could be half the price he is. I really do think this horse is quite smart. But it's interesting to see St. Lawrence, who's been out the most experienced, hardy, wasn't that far behind Chindit, is 10-1. And I don't know what your thoughts on that be, Bully.
No, I agree with you. He's always been overpriced, actually. Almost every start he's had, he's been underestimated in the market. I mean, he's a very good, smart horse who shouldn't be 10-1. I agree with that. But he is taking on some extremely exciting 2-year-olds, one of which you just mentioned. I think Albashir deserves a huge amount of respect just because Owen Burrows is having the season of a lifetime. Everything he touches seems to turn to gold. And in those colours, could be looking at another Minzal. It's possible. I like Chindit too, actually. I'm going to go with you, Templegate. I think he's done nothing wrong. The form has worked out really well last time, and he was very visually impressive. So I think he probably should be favourite, actually, ahead of Albashir. I'm rather surprised he's not. He might obviously go off favourite, but he's got a really exciting future, Richard Hannon. So I'll go with him as well. On to the 225, the Bet365 Portland Handicap, always one of the most competitive sprint handicaps of the season over that weird 5.5 furlong distance. Very few races run over that distance over the course of the season. As always, plenty of these have got big prices. Former winner, A Moment of Madness, heads the market at 7-1, closely followed by Soldier's Minute 8-1. There's plenty of horses in here, so I won't go through them all. But Steve, what takes your eye most in this? There's quite a lot of good prices, aren't there?
Certainly, yeah. I mean, I was a bit surprised to see A Moment of Madness favourite. I mean, hasn't actually won since winning this 2 years ago. Okay, £8 lower, and I suppose ran well at Goodwood last time, but I'd be slightly surprised if he's good enough at the age of 7 to come back to something like the best. I mean, it was interesting to see Soldier's Minute, who's run over 6 furlongs pretty much his whole career, and Keith Dalglish dropped him to this distance, or very close to this distance, one of the few other 5.5 furlong races at York last time, and he ran a cracker. He just got going a little bit too late. But I think there's going to be so much pace on in this race that the fact that he stays 6, as long as he doesn't get too far behind, I think his stamina will be a massive asset at the end. And I think stall 22 should be okay as well. We'll have to see. Another one I like is Miras. I fancied him for the Stewards Cup, and I thought he ran pretty well there. Didn't get much of a ride last time in an apprentices race, and I think he's another one who'll be fine over the distance. The short list is very long, but I think
long list.
Soldier's Minute and Miras are the two I like the look of best.
Okay, lovely stuff. Thanks, Steve. Chad, what about you?
I think I agree with Soldier's Minute. I think, but as with anything in all these big sprints, everything needs to fall right. So anyone having a bet, tend to back 2 or 3 or maybe 3 or 4 in this race. Back them all each way. It's the right kind of prices to do so. I'll be backing Soldier's Minute because I do think that he's got a lot of ability, especially over a very fast run 5. I'll be back in for my sins, Arecibo. He always runs well, and I think he'd run well whether he runs in a Group 3 or whether he runs in a Class 3. He just seems to, his style is he runs on through horses, and this looks like the ideal race. He's now dropped £7 from the start of the season, and I think he's coming down to a really winnable mark. It's about time he popped up in one of these handicaps and paid me back for all the times I've supported him. Yeah. And also just another bottle. He might just need a little bit to come down a bit further in the handicap for Kevin Ryan, but he was a really hardy horse in his day, second in the Stewards Cup last year. He's got a lot of ability and he'll go from the front. It's just whether he can stay. But there'd be the 3 for me.
Lovely stuff. Thanks, Chad. It's a really hot race, isn't it? I'm going to go with Wentworth Falls, who was 5th in the race last year but didn't get a clear run. And he's a bit higher than the weight. It's now only £4 high, but I think he could well have won the race that day if he got a clear run. He's got a really good record at Doncaster, won very nicely last season as well. So I'm going to go with him in what is a very, very hot little race. Moving on now to the 3 o'clock, the Bet365 Park Stakes, Group 2. Great to see Limato back. He's towards the head of the market, Henry Candy. One master in there as well. She's a wonderful horse over this distance and on slightly faster ground. Also on soft ground, of course. Best taking a look. He won a Group 3 last time out. A few others in here as well, including Molatham and Wichita for Aidan O'Brien. Interesting run of that one. Chad, come to you first for this one. Who do you like?
Wide open race. I'm proud, I think, to say that when Limato, every time, I've got Limato wrong every time, basically. I've never backed him when he's won and I've backed him when he's got beat. So I'm going to go against him today. So if anyone does fancy Limato, you've probably already go and stand in the queue. Essentially, you've got a winning docket in your hand waiting. The horse I'm actually going to take a chance on is Shine So Bright, trained by Betway ambassador Andrew Balding. This horse was only beaten 5 lengths in Magna Grecia's 2,000 guineas. I think he's not been overly helped by this concertinaed season. I think he was probably fit early on, and things just not happened. And you've seen the same for plenty of horses this year. They just haven't been suited by the nature of this season that's been crammed together. If you go back to his win at York when he beat Lawrence last year, that form's as good as anything else in this field. And he's coming into form. He's running himself into form, running himself into fitness. And he's 16-1 at the moment. And I just think that is absolutely huge. If he comes back to the form that we know he can run and he's produced before, I think he could be really dangerous. I really do.
Well, I wouldn't put you off at all. Steve, would you agree or would you like something else?
Yeah, tough this, isn't it? Because we've got the lovely One Master in there as well, and quite a lot of our favourites are in this. It's difficult. I like Malatham as well, but I'm not sure it's quite up to this standard. I just keep getting drawn back to Wichita's first 2 runs this season. I mean, going down in a blanket finish for the Guineas, then a really good run at Royal Ascot and the St James's Palace, and then even the Sussex Stakes when he was 5th. I mean, it's a 5th against all the superstars of the year, wasn't it? I mean, it wasn't a bad run at all. If we forgive him not being that much at home in the Morris de Geest when it was all happening a bit quickly, if he can repeat that neck form from the Guineas, then you'd have to give him a really good chance, wouldn't you? I mean, it's a big if, but the question marks, I mean, Limato's knocking on a bit now, won this race 5 years ago. It was a good run at Newmarket, but this is tougher. And like I say, I think for like some Malatham may be a bit short of this level. I think if Wichita, Frankie back on, I think he should go well.
Yeah, as you say, on those 2 runs at the beginning of the season, he would be a strong favourite for this, and rightly so. I'm just going to go with One Master. I've kind of gone to war with her a few times, but I think she's so good over this distance and wasn't seen to her best at last time at York. I think she is better than that, and hopefully she can rediscover that here with Tom Marquand on board. Now, onto the big one, the 335, the Protestant St Leger Stakes, last but not least. I mean, this is a cracking race this year. It's one of the best St Legers I've ever seen, I can remember at least. Pile Driver and Santiago, 3-1 heading the market. And by best, I should mean possibly not the best in quality, but the best in terms of competitiveness, because it is a fantastically hot affair. And then you've got Hookerman at 4-1. Looked very exciting last time out when landing a race at Newbury. English King. Dawn Patrol is in there for Aidan O'Brien, but as is Santiago, that's going to be the pacemaker for that one. Galileo Chrome is the interesting runner for Joseph O'Brien. Mohican Heights each way for Jack Keane, I should probably put in there. He likes that one at 3-1. Then you've got Subjectivity one so well at Goodwood last time. Plenty of these with chances, and a few others who I haven't even mentioned, who's like Sunchart. Tyson Fury is probably the only one who can't win this, I would say, despite the fact he did win on his debut. Steve, look, this is one of the best races of the season so far, I would say. In terms of competitiveness, who takes your eye the most?
Yeah, certainly the most interesting classic, which we don't normally say about the Leger, do we? Bless it. It'd be good if, to get the profile back up because it's a cracking race. We did an anti-post preview a while back and my mind hasn't changed since then. I fancied Hookham to win and Subjectivist to place, and I kind of still do. I mean, Hookham, whatever you want to call it, was very impressive at Royal Ascot when it was green as grass, really. Did really well, knuckled down. And then the Geoffrey Freer win last time was well up to the type of thing you'd like to see from a Leger winner. It'd be great to see Pile Driver win. Obviously, we always love a story. But I'm just not sure he'll get home over the trip. I hope, in some ways, I hope he does, even though I won't be backing him. But that was such a good run at York in the Great Voltage. If he could do that again, then great. But I just don't think he's bred to get it. But we'll soon find out. Harbour Watch's side hasn't had that many have a go over it, but I don't think has won certainly either a Group 1 or over this sort of trip in the UK so far. So that's a bit of a worry. Santiago, of course, will stay. Won Royal Ascot over, was it just over this trip or very close to it? The Goodwood run behind Stradivarius, you'd think, well, it was only beaten 2 lengths. It's the fact that Naif Road finished in front of it that makes you kind of worried. I'm droning on now, sorry.
No, it's great.
Galileo Chrome's been very well back, but you would think would need more rain, and it's not forecast. Ideally, Subjectivist could probably do with a bit of rain as well, but I just love the way he won the March Stakes, and I think the way he battles, the way he doesn't give up, I could really see him going close. So I'm backing Hookham to win and Subjectivist for each way purposes.
Always a good sign when you've done an anti-post preview and your mind has not changed in the interim time. That's always a very good sign. So hopefully they will both run well. I'm going to go with you, actually. I think Hookham is the one to beat. He's done nothing wrong. I think if he was trained by John Gosden, he'd be favourite. And I think he's got a massive chance here. And I also like Galileo Chrome. You said he might need softer ground. It's quite possible he does need softer ground for his absolute optimum standards. But he has won on good firm and on good ground. So I'm not so worried about that for him. And he really has impressed me in his last couple of starts. And he keeps getting better. And Joseph O'Brien, as we know, is so good at training his horses for the big days. Great. Hookham for you and Subjectivist each way. Chad, what about you?
Bit of a wild shot, actually. I mean, I'm going to run for a couple. Pile Driver, I think, has got too many gears. I think he's a really good horse. I think he's the best horse in the race. But I think he's probably too quick. I think he's a 1.5 mile horse. But I don't think there's anything wrong in his connections taking a stab. Hookham, I think, is good. There's just a bit of inexperience there for me that I just would have to doubt back in the 7-2 shot with that much inexperience. Galileo Chrome seems to keep improving, but has won, get beaten not a great deal. English King seems to be going over to France on Sunday. Subjectivist, I think, will go from the front and will make it a real test. And it's interesting, Mark Johnson's numbers in this race. 10 runners, I think. He's only had 10 runners in the St. Leger, which you'd think he'd have more. And I think 5 of them have been placed. So I think as a stat, it's just quite impressive that he only runs horses that seem to go well and seem to run really well. I just can't believe the price of Berkshire Rocker is 33 to 1. I just can't get my head around it. He was only beaten 2 lengths by English King over 1 mile 3 at Lingfield. And then English King is single figure digits. And Berkshire Rocker went off favourite. Then he was beaten narrowly on his first try at 1 mile 6 behind Santiago. Santiago's 11 to 4, Berkshire Rocker's 33 to 1. And things didn't go right for Berkshire Rocker that day. He didn't come out the stalls well, he travelled well, but then got caught in a little bit of traffic and had to come on and stayed on well. Then he ran behind Pile Driver on his first run off a 2-month break, over 1 mile of 4, which would have been 2 furlongs shorter than what he wanted. And he ran a really decent race. And if you read the comments, it says no extra final furlong. Well, he was keeping on through the line. He was going really well. And I just can't believe this horse is 33 to 1. I just think it's a massive, massive price. I'm not saying he's going to win. I just can't have Pile Driver, Santiago and Hookham at 11 to 4, 7 to 2. And this one's 33 to 1. I think he's that much worse. I think he's a cracking each way bet.
Great stuff. And we have seen big price winners of this race before. Harbour Law, of course, being the most recent for Laura Mungan. Fantastic, very well discussed there. Beautifully succinct, as usual, as I would expect from both of you. Now, finally, best bets over the 2 days. I'll come to you, Steve, first. Who's your best bet?
Well, the Saturday nap will be Hookham in the St. Leger, and I'm happy to go with that one.
Great stuff. Hookham for Steve. I am going to go with One Master in the Park Stakes. And Chad?
I think we'll go with Berkshire Rocco each way in the Leger. It's a big price. I do think there's a horse running tomorrow at Chester for Andrew called Montanari, coming off the back of a break. I mean, I don't know what price it is, but I imagine it'd be short enough, but I know they think he's very, very smart, and his homework's been excellent of late, so I imagine he'll get on the winners list as well.
Superb. Thank you very much, guys. Hopefully there are some winners in there. Looking forward to it. It's a great weekend, isn't it? Both in England and in Ireland and in France. So enjoy it as you will, and see you all at home very soon.
Love it.